Radio TT 365, the best biking station in the world.
John, this is day two of TT. You gave us your thoughts yesterday about the fact that the Manx residents should be welcoming, and indeed are welcoming, very much so, to the TT fans. What about today?
Well, today, Charlie, I was suddenly thinking, what we might offer today and what we might share with people. But it's 2 or 3 years ago now since the staff at Castle Rushen High School, where Milky Quayle attended as a boy, asked me and Milky to go down and do an assembly. It was in Manx week, in fact, which is the first week in July. So we did both arrive there, Milky in his leathers and helmet and with his bike, to his old school. And the form was that we were to do an interview on stage in front of the school, and we did. And it was remarkable, really. He's a tremendous fellow, Milky, to meet and to talk to and to be with. So here we were on the stage, and we'd gone on and we'd talked about his racing career. The hall was absolutely packed with the pupils. We came towards the end, and then the interview, and you know, Charlie, you're looking for an outline, just to go out on. And right at the end of the interview, when we'd had the sign, time to quit, a boy from the back asked Milky, would you advise me to become a TT rider? And what a question to be asked. And I wondered, how will Milky handle this? And I don't think I'll ever forget his answer. 3 words, just 3 words. Milky said, follow your dream. Follow your dream.
Okay, so on to the morning's guests, and let's start going sort of anti-clockwise around the table. Kenny Arthur, a sidecar winner around here with Jock Taylor and George Adele, and also world champion sidecar passenger. We'll come on to that in a minute. Over on this side, Mick Chatterton. Mick Chatterton, our current president of the TTRA, and first race in the TT way back in 1967. And last TT 2004, so we've got plenty to talk about there with Mick about the TT, how the TT's changed. Very poignant, in fact, because I mentioned this article in the TT News. I'm going to hold the TT News up there for people to see. There's a good article in there on the turning point, what many believe to be the turning point in the TT, which was the 1972 125 race. I guess basically that was the big turning point in the reason eventually why the TT lost its World Championship status. And now my third guest this morning is somebody that I didn't mention, but he's actually the taxi driver for Kenny, because he's fetched Kenny up here on the back of his bike. Colin Peters. Morning, Colin.
Morning, Charlie.
Yeah, good. And Colin, you've had a great association with the TT, more notably, I reckon, with Nick Jeffries as Nick's mechanic. And you've been coming to the TT for how many years?
Oh, since I was about 7 years old. Originally, my father used to bring me over on the midnight boat for the Friday Senior.
That's about 53 years then.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
So, I mean, since I've known you, you've rarely missed a TT one way or another. I mean, now, okay, you might help out 1 or 2 people, but you don't have an official capacity here.
No, I don't have an official capacity of the TT at all now. I just come over purely for pleasure. I come over for the Manx Grand Prix and enjoy the Manx Grand Prix in September, and I have a little bit more involvement in that than in the TT.
What is it about the TT, Colin, that attracts you and the Manx?
What attracts me? I've just been coming here such a long time, it almost becomes a habit, and now I come across my own boat and just enjoy the trip over here and the fortnight here and everything that's going on.
Is racing as important for you back at home? I mean, did you go to a lot of races at home as well, or
at home,
superbike and stuff?
Well, I don't do so much superbike, but at home my son's racing sidecars now, and with the Founds trilogy of he's racing with a friend of his that's been a friend of his since he was literally a baby. So it seems quite funny watching them racing.
They just started last year, didn't they?
They started 2 years ago, yeah. And they're doing very well. I can see the other side of the fence now, where I'm sort of sat at the side of the track, sort of fingers crossed as they go round. That funny feeling of nervousness and excitement both at the same time. So I'm seeing it from the other side of the fence a little bit.
It must be difficult, that, because I was Paul Coward, of course, his son Jamie, did ever so well yesterday down at Ballown, as he did the previous year, and Paul's out there racing, and but as he was saying when he was being interviewed by Chris Kindley, you know, he's sort of taking a bit of a backseat now and concentrating more on Jamie's career, you know, and it must be difficult as a parent. I mean, fortunately, I've got two daughters that never wanted to go motorbike racing, but I don't know how I would have handled it had they wanted to.
It is very difficult. It's strange, but particularly being involved with the mechanical side of it, like I have over the years, you've got to sort of step back a little bit. Although you can't help but be involved, you can't help yourself, but make sure everything's as right as you feel it should be. But on the other hand, it's their thing. You can't interfere too much. But as far as when the racing's concerned, I feel incredibly anxious. But at the same time, I'm egging them to go faster as well in my mind, obviously, not in front of them. And it is a strange thing. I sort of realised what my mum and dad went through, and indeed my wife went through when I was racing myself.
Yeah, I think we take an awful lot for granted. It is, I think, Mick Chatterton, racing can be quite a selfish sport, can't it, really?
It's the most selfish thing there is. That's why I'm still in this position that I am now. I haven't got wife and kids to worry about, because racing definitely took priority in my life, as far as I'm concerned, right from the very start.
Well, let's talk about the very start, because being president of the TTRA, it was your honour to speak at our luncheon way back in November, and I remember a particular part of your speech when you were telling us how it all started, because you're from Barnsley, and your dad used to take you along to various sports, which none of them sort of ticked the boxes for you.
That's true. He took me to the local football match, and mind you, it was only Barnsley, but and the cricket and the horse racing, and you know, nothing had any effect on me until one day, just by pure chance, they took me to the Speedway, and that did it. That pointed me in the direction that I've been going in ever since, motorbike racing, and that was the turning point.
And still,
there was nothing else for me after that, apart from motorcycles and
a bit of music, maybe. You like music very much.
Got to have my music. A bit of downhill ski racing, and that. Well, not that I do any racing, but skiing is the only other thing that I've been involved in. But yeah, that's what turned me onto the motorbikes, and I'm very pleased that it did.
The one thing that amused me during your speech at the TTRA, you were telling us about. I could associate so much to what you were saying in parts of your speech, and the fact that once you got besotted with motorbikes, that was it. Nothing else mattered. Sitting at the back of the class, writing down various things on your satchel or on your notebook and stuff, and the teacher caught you one day, didn't he? And you were writing down names of the
I used to do the
course.
names of the parts of the circuit from start to finish. This is before I'd ever been here. I'd got all this out of books and what have you, and when I got a bit bored with the actual lesson we were supposed to be doing, I used to start doing, Bray Hill, Quarter Bridge, Braddon Bridge, Union Mills, and see how far around circuit I could get. And I got caught and sent to the headmaster's office. And he said to me, I can still remember it now, Mr. Green, P we used to call him, P Green, only a little fella. He says to me, what's all this about? So I told him what it was, and he says, well, what good do you think that's going to do you in your life later on? I says, well, I'm going to be a TT rider. I was about 11 or 12 years old at the time, and he says, yeah, of course you are. He says, and I'm going to win the heavyweight championship of the world, And he's like I say, he was a little fellow with thick glasses, so I knew, as it turns out, I was telling the truth, and he wasn't. And I often wonder if when he used to read about me in the local paper in his retirement home, whether he ever remembered that day,
Because he never stepped into the ring, I imagine.
No, I think he never got near one.
We're going to take a break. Okay, Mick got into racing. He's told us how. He just went. All it took to ignite it was a little spark to go to a speedway race, watch a bit of speedway, and that was it. He was away. What about you, Kenny? How did you get started?
Well, you probably will believe this, but it started in the pub. We all used to congregate in a particular pub in our local area on our motorbikes, and this guy, I didn't know at the time, was heavily into watching sidecar racing. And he said to me, you'd make an ideal passenger. You're the right weight. You're always out running. fit. And I said, well, what do sidecar passengers do? I've no idea. He said, well, we'll go to Upton Park next weekend and you can have a look and then you can decide then. If you want to do it, I'm going to buy a bike and you can be my passenger.
Oh, really?
And that was it.
At what age were you then?
About 22, I think.
And have you got an interest in bikes anyway before that? Yeah.
Always had a big interest in motorbikes. I did. I had a Bonneville I had a Bianchi first, and then I moved on from a Bianchi to a Bonneville. And I used to go to Prees Heath and places, Upton Park. But funnily enough, never really took much interest in sidecar racing. It was always the Mike Aylwoods and the Derek Minters, the Paddy Drivers, them sort of people. We'd be watching, and then we'd probably come home like a lot of people used to do as young boys. And then he bought this sidecar off a friend of Bill Curry's, funnily enough, and we went racing to the prom at New Brighton.
That was your first one?
That was my very first one. I think Barry Sheen was there on his Bull Taco, and that was my first crash, first race meeting. And then we went from there to Silloth. And then he decided he wanted a kneeler. He didn't want a sitter. So I had a rest then for about half a season. And then I got a phone call from Bill Curry. His passenger had fallen out somewhere and ended up with pneumonia. And I went off to Snetterton with Bill. And I raced there, and we had quite a successful day. And then after that, I raced with various people, probably 22 or 24 different drivers. I'd get on with anybody. It didn't matter. I just wanted to be racing, you know.
So you had your first TT way back in 1967, Mick. On what bikes?
TD1C and 350 Mackie. I'd done 3 Manxes previous to that without a great deal of success, although I did get my first ever silver rep in 65 Manx, it was, I think, and moved on to the TT in 67, and because I'd had me 3 years in the Manx, and I'd used that as a course learning exercise, which I went into very deeply. I was intent on learning the circuit exactly, and I think I did pretty well with that. I still take people around and show them various points, and funnily enough, they all seem to be the same now as they were then.
Yeah, not a lot changes. Just one or two places have changed dramatically, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, but that was my first one, 1967, and I was lucky enough to finish 6th in the 250 race. Yeah.
Wow, a good result then.
Yeah.
And then that didn't stop you racing altogether, though, the fact that they'd withdrawn those classes from the TT.
No, I continued racing. I'm still racing today. I was a bit one way or the other this last winter about packing in altogether, but I decided, the entries started coming and I started filling them in and sending them in, and so I'm back doing another season on the Irish roads, yes.
Purely Irish roads, that's it?
Yeah, nothing else.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I do the Southern 100.
Yeah.
When the TT finished for me, I thought, well, that's a chance to come back and do the Southern 100 again, so that's the only meeting I do outside Ireland.
Anyway, time has overtaken us, and we're going to have to draw the first chat shows to a close. So thanks to my guests, Colin Peters, Mick Chatterton and Kenny Arthur. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for John Kenyak as well. We'll be listening to John again tomorrow morning. And I'll be back here at 1 o'clock. I don't know who my guests are going to be yet, but I'll be back here from 1 till 2, here at the rear of the TT Grandstand in this show studio. I'll speak to you then.
Manx Radio TT 365, the best biking station in the world.